Hello, and welcome to this Boo Medea's Purple Journal podcast edition of the Purple Journal podcast. Tyler Perry is an investor now. I didn't tell you guys. Nothing. Okay. It is Halloween.
A little young for me.
It's Halloween. It's a little spooky outside. It's a little spooky in the Vikings world. And I'm a little terrified. I am Joe Johnson, the owner of Purple PTSD, Vikings territory. I co-host Morning Joes. Sometimes with Mr. Joe Overly, depending on the power grid that morning, I guess.
I've been trying to get lost in the grid with you for years, Joe. I can't get away from it. But you keep calling back. So.
You're going to have to move pretty far away. Luke Braun is also here. Is it as spooky in LA as it is here? It's a perfect Halloween. It's cold, but not too cold. It smells like burning leaves, diabetes. Is that the way it is down there, or are people handing out kale?
I will say it is a treacherous drive for a lot of reasons right now.
I figured I was waiting for a text from you to say maybe that you might be late. With your traffic plus the millions of children running around?
Exactly, yeah. Parents, if you're going to dress your kid as Batman, please, God, wear something bright yourselves.
That's a good call. How you guys feeling? Start with Joe. I just want a gut reaction to Vikings as it stands halfway through the season.
All right. You know, their record should be better, but it's not. There's a couple they could have had, a couple they should have had, a couple they didn't get. But, the division's not over. The conference is, falling hopelessly behind if we're still thinking about that. The Rams playing the way they are.
Yeah.
But the Vikings, have weathered some injuries, and, we'll probably talk about this later, but... the gloom and doom of our scary quarterback, people talking about him and others talking about Zimmer ready to go. I have to laugh. I mean, enjoy the season, fellas and fellas and gals. They'll be fine. They will definitely be fine. You want to play your best football in November and December, and tomorrow that starts. So.
Yeah, and Zimmer did say this week, that the team, he was pleased that the team was 3-1 in October, and that if he had to look at how the team's doing, he would say that they're doing pretty good. I think he said, when I'm upset or when I'm pissed off, I'm not there. I think the team's pretty good, and I think that's a decent assessment. If we're gonna go. We're going to do some half-season grades, and maybe we should just start with that and then talk about the news. I wrote the article about Zimmer on the hot seat, and I didn't necessarily mean it for myself. I'm backing off big time here.
What a backpack.
Hey, no, but the article was written as a response to Charlie Walters, and I said, but if the defense continues to suck, he should get fired. That was what I said. I don't think the Saints' loss is on Zimmer, and I do think they should have won that game. And I think a lot of power rankings, I know you guys don't care, but they didn't really tag the Vikings for that loss because they outplayed the Saints, and the Saints are a good team. It's just that there's two horrible plays, and those plays bother the shit out of me. But it's not something that, from the guys that did it, Diggs and Thielen, it's not like I'm worried about it.
Yeah, it seemed like the national kind of, because it was a primetime game, and everyone watched it, and they could all kind of come away with that feeling of like, okay, that team doesn't suck. Like, it's obviously like the score looks like they suck, but they don't suck.
Yeah, I was going to say that, especially with this.
I think where I'm at on the Vikings. They don't suck. That's cool.
Most of the,
They don't suck. Wow. Okay.
They're underachieving. I will say that. They're better than 4-3-1. I'll say that.
Absolutely.
Which means that the second half of the season would project to do better, right? Because you would expect them to do closer than their average than they did the first half of the season.
And it has to be better if they win.
Well, what scares me about that a little bit is just that we don't have And somebody's mic, I don't know if someone's holding a mic, but it's moving a lot, so I'm just...
Yeah, I hear that too. It's not here. I don't know. It sounds like someone's playing basketball with a microphone.
I often want to throw my iPhone at the ground while covering the Vikings, so I don't blame anybody. I feel like a lot of the national takes, there's been some people, I even saw it in the Frank Schwab Power Rankings, and he said it the way that I would say it. He said this new Kirk Cousins is a flop, $84 million flop. If anyone watched this half of the season, no one would say that any of this is his fault. He has faults, clearly, but those 2 turnovers, you can debate the Diggs one, but obviously Thielen took ownership for that. But I don't think any Vikings fan, I haven't heard any Vikings fan at least say, Cousins sucks, or this is Cousins' fault.
He deserves to take some. He's got some skin on the interception, because he's got to read the same thing hopefully read it the same way. I think the same way that Diggs did, because Diggs saw him the guy over the top. So, granted, Cousins was under duress and had to get rid of it. So, this all happened split second. I'm not blaming either one of them.
Yeah.
Diggs read it, said, I'm going to do this. And, I'm sure they know that that's what you do. But
and they've only played together for 8 games too, so there's that learning curve, which I threw out in my panic.
I don't think that's it all. I think it was more he was about ready to be drilled, and he had to get rid of it, and he didn't see Diggs do what he did in time, and that's what happened. Sometimes the other makes a better play.
As a quarterback, you have to anticipate. Like, you can't sit there and wait and see what Diggs is going to do. You have to try to guess what Diggs is going to do, and then hope that you're on the same page, and in that time they weren't. But I do think that it's more Diggs' fault than Cousins', because when you run a crosser, the general rule of thumb is if it's man coverage, you go, and you keep running because you'll have a step. And if it's zone coverage, you sit down in the middle. We see Adam Thielen do this all the time. If it's zone coverage, you sit down, like Diggs did. Excuse me. But it was man coverage, and Diggs acted as if it were zone coverage. So Cousins threw what he was expecting Diggs to do based on it being man coverage, and Diggs, I think, tried to get cute. And that, in my opinion, was a really bad idea. Do what your quarterback is expecting.
Right, because he's got to throw it first. And Diggs did own up to it and say that.
Yeah,
and I think he got in trouble for saying that.
Yeah, that's a talking point too, because I know he said something, Thielen said something, and then Treadwell also said something about his penalty. He was the more vocal of taking blame for the loss, I think. I know Diggs said this is basically going to live in my head until we play the Saints again, which I liked, because I want to fire up Diggs should we play them in the playoffs. But I know Zimmer came out and kind of quashed all that and said, we win as a team, we lose as a team.
Treadwell's penalty was inexcusable. I don't care how mad you
can't do that in his 3rd year.
No, you can't. You can't do it anytime. I mean, A, you can't take your helmet out. B, you shouldn't act like a baby on national TV.
Every time I want to give him props, I feel like something bad happens. I feel like he arguably had his best game as a pro. He had a lot of clutch first down catches. He had that one batted out of his arms that I argued with somebody in our live chat about, because I'm like, come on, man. And he's like, that's not Treadwell's fault. I'm like, well,
never been targeted.
Well, that's a question too, but at the same time, it's like I thought Treadwell was supposed to. He was
the 4th most open guy on the field.
Well, yeah.
That was a horrible decision.
I wonder where that comes from, and I wonder, my point was for Treadwell, like I thought he was supposed to make these amazing contested catches, and I know the bar is a lot lower than that now, but I wanted to. And it was hard not having Joe there because I didn't have anyone to bounce my panic off of, except for my dad, who makes everything a million times worse. He's probably shown me 10 articles about Big Ten linemen like this week. And I just watching that line and looking at Joe, you had in your Tuesday's Tale of the Tapes, which we didn't get to do because Joe's power went out. That Cousins, I think, was pressured on like 49% of his dropbacks, and he's like 2nd in the league for completion percentage under duress, which is great because he wasn't really known for that coming in here. But my question's about the offensive line, and I wanted to say after that game, like, we're not going to win in the playoffs with this line. He's getting hit way too much. But then I thought about the injuries, and maybe they'll get rid of Rashad Hill at some point. That's my only real big, at this point in the season, if we're extrapolating it over the course of the next 8 games or the playoffs, something has to happen on the offensive line where they shore this up, otherwise it's all for naught. And that's been an argument we've had on the show for years, so it's nothing new to you guys. But kicking it to Luke, because I talked about your article and I said I was just going to write the same exact thing just until the Vikings take notice. And clearly with the injuries that was hard, but
wait. The Vikings are going to take notice and take cues from us?
Well, I just want to light a fire to at least say I tried. I don't know how any of this works.
Mike Zimmer's not
listens to
Donald
the show.
Trump. Mike Zimmer is not Donald Trump, who sits up and watches cable news all night and Fox gets his next agenda item. Zimmer is not reading us. So,
I know.
We know very publicly that Troy Aikman does not listen to anyone's podcast.
No, I'm not like delusional, but I feel like maybe if I complain about it enough, at least I'll feel better, I guess.
That's fair. I'll do
that. On the line, I think so. The big issues have been on the edges, right? The interior's actually been okay. They had some issues before Elflein came back. Elflein has been whatever, right? But you're not going to replace him right now. Remmers has been problematic at guard, and we've talked a lot about that. But I think Rashad Hill has been most consistently a problem. I think, Elflein and Remmers even have had, reasonable games. Tom Compton has had a really nice year, so you kind of hope he can come back healthy. Riley Reif has been up and down, but there are ups. I feel like Rashad Hill hasn't had a good game all year, and he's the only one to play all the games. So
yeah.
Hopefully when Reif comes back, Rashad Hill goes to the bench and Brian O'Neill has earned the start, because he's been, even though he kind of got his lunch eaten by Cam Jordan, that was about it. He gave Cam Jordan an average Cam Jordan night. So I think he's pretty clearly earned the start over Rashad Hill, which, it really sucks that it took us 8 weeks to realize that. And I think there's just this weird stubbornness on the line. I do fully believe that they have 5 capable starters in that room. I think they just refuse to play them because they're so worried about screwing up the chemistry that they'd rather just be bad and just be okay with that. But I also think that the plan going into the year, because they knew that Kirk Cousins had those pressure issues, right? They scouted this.
I told them,
and I don't
in an article.
Yeah.
Practice, Luke, and they're seeing that, okay, this guy's not ready yet, and they're not going to put him in until he is. He's a rookie who's undersized and playing a new position. I don't think I would have, even though I said at the beginning of the year he was going to start, I don't think I would have put him in if he's not ready, and I got to believe that's what they're doing.
Well, wouldn't the argument...
we saw it from our couches. We saw him outplay Rashad Hill in the preseason. We saw him outplay Rashad Hill when he was in week 2 in-game action. So unless you're saying...
It's got to be a reason, because it's not stubborn.
Because they're stubborn.
No, I don't.
Of course it is.
What? Yeah, because
and hubris with the NFL.
The argument also wasn't just Brian O'Neill; it was moving Remmers back and then having Reif and Remmers on the tackle, and then putting someone else at right guard. And it wasn't solely Brian O'Neill coming in at right tackle. At least I remember the article you wrote a couple weeks ago, Luke, was more about Remmers than anything. They could always do that too. So there's other solutions.
Yeah, and I'm at peace with that ship having sailed. They clearly just don't believe that that's the right thing. They disagree with me. That's fine. But I think the with Brian O'Neill at least, it was very clear. I think he got his first game action in Lambeau, and it was clear immediately after that game that he was better than Rashad Hill. But they, I think, consistently misevaluate their own offensive linemen. That's just an issue that the staff has had for a long time.
New coaches.
So it doesn't shock me that they're slow to do these things.
New coaches.
Yeah, and coaches that they didn't handpick to be their coaches, right?
Yeah. I wonder how much of that is part of it.
I'm sorry, you just are not a better assessor of the line than they are. I just don't get that. You're very good. You're better than I am, but I don't see you as being more of an authority than the people whose job it is to do it. It's just my opinion.
I'm not saying that I evaluated Rashad Hill better than they did. I'm saying that they've made a ton of mistakes over their whole thing that leads me to believe to not be very surprised that they are going to make a wrong decision. We can pretty clearly say that the way they handled Brandon Fusco was incorrect. and we can pretty clearly say that about a whole bunch of things. That's the first example that came to my mind. And we always have the benefit of hindsight and all that, so it's not like I'm blaming them or anything. I'm sure if I had stepped in myself, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not acting like I'm smarter than they are. That's a straw man. What I'm saying is they have made many mistakes with their own evaluations of players. Even going, this is kind of a stupid one because it was way long ago, but they cut Mike Remmers and he didn't make the team, and he went and started elsewhere, and they played TJ Clemmings for way longer than they played Matt Khalil for way longer than they should have. They are very slow to move on these things, and
they brought in
to be faster.
They brought in Boone because they liked his personality. Then they didn't after a year. It just, I don't know.
That was a scheme thing too. Schemes and
he didn't fit physically, I think, because he was overweight. But I don't. And I can understand what you're saying, Joe, too, because I basically said, maybe I can get the team to make a decision based on an article I write in my sweatpants. But at the same time, I don't think any of us would have a quote-unquote job if we weren't at least nitpicking things that we thought could be improved.
I'm not saying that. It just seems there's got to be a reason that he wasn't ready to go, or else they would have put him in there. They're always going to put the best guys on there. I mean, this staff is sometimes ruthless in the decisions they make with having a veteran that people should stay on, and they let him go because he's not the guy. If I would criticize him for anything, it is not making it more of a priority in the draft for the offense.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
And maybe
they've taken one day 2 the last 2 years.
Maybe maybe that speaks to what Luke's saying, that they, their assessments of these positions aren't good. Maybe, I don't know, but I think when they're with them every day at practice and seeing these guys develop, especially the younger players, they know more than you or me or anybody else does. Now, granted, Mike Zimmer can be stubborn. He can be a stubborn guy. He's very restrictive in starting rookies as far as his cornerback goes. But then again, he had Mike Hughes out there this year. So, suddenly he was ready. He put him in. So I don't know. I mean, there's evidence both ways. I just think it's hard to sit back here and say that clearly they're making these obvious mistakes. I think there's a reason for the choices they make, and they're just not going to tell us what they are. But
I think that it is, and we have the benefit of hindsight, right? So it's not like we can say, how stupid are they for not doing this?
Right.
But with the benefit of hindsight, it's very clear right now that Brian O'Neill is better than Rashad Hill. I don't think you can construct a very convincing argument using their bodies of work to this point that Rashad Hill is a better offensive tackle than Brian O'Neill is. And I think this has been true for a few weeks. So I'm curious, if they sit O'Neill and put Rashad Hill back out there, I don't think there's any excuse for that. I think at that point, you're just kind of closing your mind off to it, and you're being stubborn.
I don't think they will.
I don't think they will either. And I know that they kind of overvalue Rashad Hill because of his length, and they've said that his length is what kind of keeps him on the field and what gets him earning this starting job. And he does have very good length, but he has a whole bunch of other issues that make that length. You could have the longest arms in the world, and guys can still get past you if you suck at using them. So
at least you can hold them from further away.
The good news,
right.
The good news is Reef practiced today. He was limited, but he practiced. Yep. And that's a huge, huge positive for this offensive line, even though Reef wasn't having his best season coming in. And the last thing I want to throw in on there is when we do evaluate the line, we have to remember that they've played some pretty tough defensive fronts this year. I mean, they played the best rushing defense last weekend against the Saints. They played the Rams defensive front, and I think there was one more that was really good. That the Eagles used to have a pretty good defense front. So I mean, we got to take a little bit.
The Jets were supposed to.
Yeah. So.
They did pretty well against Leonard Williams, and they went up and pretty much, I believe they stonewalled Leonard Williams the week after he put Quentin Nelson on his butt, which is an amazingly impressive feat.
Don't get me wrong. I'd love the offensive line to do much better than they're doing and keep Cousins cleaner, because then I think you really get to see how good he is. I mean, Cousins does he does feel the rush a little bit differently than Keenum did, and some of his mistakes have come from that. But he's also getting rushed, as we said earlier, a hell of a lot more pressured a heck of a lot more than anybody else. So what are you going to do? Just play better.
Yeah, you can and I've said this all the time when this offensive line thing comes up, is you can overcome pressure without even really working that hard if you scheme for it, and I think that was the plan. I think back to the quote from the head of the Vikings analytics department from the offseason when he was asked about, I forget his name, but when he was asked about Kirk Cousins, he basically said, listen, if he plays the way that he played in Washington, we're going to be successful. And I think that was such a measured way of saying, like, we know he has flaws, and we're going to prepare to work around them, which is really smart, right? Because you're not going to find a perfect quarterback. You're not just going to stumble into Aaron Rodgers. You can't just hope for that. You have to pick up a guy, if he has flaws that you can work around. Right. Like if you can find a way to make plays that work when there's pressure, which they've been excellent at, right? A whole bunch of those pressured completions have been free bootlegs or play action passes where Kyle Rudolph is wide open in the flat, and that's awesome. And you can just flip it up to him, and it's totally easy, and suddenly pressure didn't matter. There's a whole bunch of plays where the line gets absolutely destroyed, and it doesn't matter because the play design made it completely irrelevant. And I think that's one of the smartest things that the Vikings have done this year, and it's why they are still in, it's why they're still able to be relevant and be very competitive, nay, good, in spite of an offensive line that's not holding up.
There was a point in the Saints game where the color commentator said they got to get a tight end out there to help. I think he said the rookie, so I'm pretty sure it was Brian O'Neill's side.
Yeah, versus Cam Jordan, just huge mismatch.
Have they been doing any of that? Putting, I don't watch the X's and O's, especially in the loss. It's all a blurry rage for me in my memory.
PFF has this.
Have they been helping in that regard, chipping and adding tight ends and whatnot? Someone's doing fireworks.
PFF has this. We'll see how many.
I'm sure they are at some points. I mean, you've seen some double tight end sets with Morgan and Rudolph in there.
I'm trying to. Yeah, I'm just thinking.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And they do have some decent running backs as far as protection goes. Latavius is good.
He's elite, apparently, as a pass blocker. Or at least supposedly.
Not really. Kyle Rudolph has 44 pass blocking snaps all year, which is, what is that, 5 or 6 times a game they have him help? Mm-hmm. There's chips, which is a different thing, right?
Yeah.
That's not a pass blocking snap. And I think that does happen sometimes on those, when, if the tight end's the check down, he'll chip the defensive end on his way out. I do know that they've come out in, max protection formations sometimes as well. I think the one that comes to mind is the Thielen touchdown against the Jets, the very first one, that long bomb touchdown. I believe Thielen and Diggs were the only 2 running routes on that one, and everybody else was pass protecting. So on those kind of shot plays, I believe there was a similar setup on a few of those really deep throws, like the Diggs big long bomb touchdown in Lambeau, I believe was that setup too. So they have done that and had success with it.
I was going to ask your guys' grades. I did mine. Basically, B- across the board. I get a feeling that's how you guys feel. I mean, to say they don't suck is better than
offensive line or what?
I did offense, defense, coaching.
You gave everybody a B+?
No, I gave Cousins an A-. I gave the offense a B or a B-. The defense a B or a B-.
Everybody in the Big Ten got an A or an A+.
Well, that goes without saying.
Saints get an A because they're all Ohio State.
There you go. Pretty much. Eli Apple. Christ. I guess I get how you guys feel, so we can get into some of the news, because we are almost halfway through the show, surprisingly. Thielen.
I'm trying to get Luke going. Got to get Luke going whenever I can.
And you got to make.
I'm already mad because of traffic, so yeah, you got me.
Well, let's talk about a good thing then. Thielen.
Oh, Thielen.
Continuing his record. Have you heard his origin story? No. Go for it.
I wrote a piece on him. Well, I actually did a piece on some records that could or will or are going to be broken this year, and some that already have. And wrote about Thielen in it. I said if he breaks Megatron's record this week weekend against Detroit, which would be what's the word, symbiotic or
serendipitous
or whatever it is, he should start having his own nickname. And I think someone has probably already said this, but I threw it out there. Atom Bomb, huh?
Oh, that's good.
Oh my God,
that is really good.
how is that not?
I don't know.
The whole time.
I have the biggest smile on my face that my skin might rip. That is amazing. All right, trademark.
You heard it here first.
Do it. Yeah, but great news.
There is pinned to the top of my Twitter profile. There is a video that's kind of made the rounds and went kind of semi-viral. It's just a highlight clip of Adam Thielen doing just absurd things, from
I
crazy
saw that.
catches.
Send it to
blowing people off the line of scrimmage, like just blowing people up at the line of scrimmage, to these obscene route running moments and these
that catch he had
completely.
against the Saints where he basically like reached around the guy and fingertip caught it while the guy was like all up in his grill. That was another amazing one.
I made it immediately after the Saints game, so that wasn't available yet. So that's not in the cut-up. But it was like another moment. He does this crap every week. It's amazing.
It's really hard to see how he's not going to just keep doing it, based on the way the offense is predicated. And, if they wanted to do max protect and just put Diggs and Thielen, I'd be happy with that every down. I'm kidding, but
every catch is catchable, and I think Diggs has some amazing adjustments to a pass in the air, but Thielen has amazing adjustments to the ball just when it's, seconds away from him. I mean, split seconds away. He will get his body or his hands or his line of sight, in position to make that catch and battle it to the ground. It's not unique to him, but he is a master at it, and it's really fun to watch. And I really think it has to do with, his origin story. He was looked past, and so every catch for him is an opportunity to stay on the team, to make, to get off the practice squad, to get on the starting lineup, to get to play next week. I think
he'll never be comfortable.
Yeah, and that's great. Yeah. If you can play your whole career that way, it
Tom Brady
takes a lot out of you, but you're gonna be rewarded at the end. I think so.
He's sustainable. And the reason he's sustainable is because he's good at everything that you need. Pretty much, right? Like, I've called him White Julio as half a joke all season. But like, what does he do poorly? He's amazing off the release. He's amazing at setting up route stems to fool cornerbacks. He's amazing at the breaking, or at the actual point of attack at the route. He's unbelievable, has an unbelievable catch radius, and he can body people because he's big enough, he's fast enough. Like, there's no reason to expect him to regress, other than, I guess, eventually you have to stop getting 100-yard games because we live in reality. But there's no reason for him to not be good now for the foreseable future. It's not like he's some flash in the pan.
I heard Joe knocking on wood. Another record I thought was cool, really quickly, was that he joined this week 4 other Vikings receivers and having 3 separate 900-yard seasons. He's done it 3 years in a row. That's 2 Carters, Anthony and Chris, Randy Moss, obviously, and then Jake Reed. So he's definitely Ring of Honor bound regardless. The only negative is he fumbles once every 3 years, so you have to look out for that. But I don't know, Joe, if you were
believe he's cost the team a game with a fumble. He's had like a game-losing fumble once in each of the last 3 years.
Yeah, really? Yeah, that punt that he fumbled.
Yeah,
Dallas. I believe he fumbled away the game, the Lions game last year that we lost. I believe he fumbled. I mean, we weren't probably going to score anyway, but it was the final game of the drive, and that's how it ended.
And you can tell he knows that. You saw the look on his face when he was walking off the sideline. What was going on? Oh man! And the game turned. The game turned at that moment. It wasn't over.
Momentum.
It was heading in that direction. I mean, they just capitalized on it. It's crazy. The Vikings were every bit as good, if not better, up until that point. And they picked off Drew Brees for the first time all year, and they were moving in for a double-digit lead. And oh my goodness, this game. That's what makes it.
Yes, exactly. And if you could pinpoint a moment where momentum shifted in any game, you could feel it. During the halftime of our live chat, I said, they got to come out. I was a little miffed about them not trying with like 36 seconds left, at least for a field goal, knowing that they get the ball back to kind of wash the Thielen fumble out of the palate of the team going into halftime. It was a palpable momentum shift. You could feel it, and that's how the game ended up. I mean, outside of that, and there's a couple other news things we can touch on later, but getting into the Saints game, you got to be happy with defensively. I know the game was weird the way things went, with Breeze having 125 yards, 130 yards, maybe more in garbage time, but you got to feel good about the amount of injuries they had on the defense and the way that the defense performed. I actually did look at Pro Football Focus. I don't think Holton Hill was matched up, at least during a pass attempt, with Michael Thomas, but he had a good grade of 81, I think. He
had a really nice night. I can actually verify that for you. I can look that up.
Yeah, you should, because I'm not sure if I was in the right spot or not when I was looking for it.
It's a great thing to bring up, the fact that they've lost Hughes and they've lost your Rhodes. And, I got to say, I watched this game disjointedly. I watched part of the first half in the airport, got on a plane, watched the fourth quarter was all I could get on the plane itself. And what was Mackenzie Alexander? What was his role, and what the heck did he do that night?
That's a good question, too.
He had a reasonable night, too, if I recall. Or where is he? Did he not play?
I don't remember seeing him the entire time out there. No,
I don't either.
I saw a lot of Jaron Kearse, and I saw
Trey Wayne.
Holton Hill, and Harrison Smith, of course. But I never saw. I don't remember seeing.
Wow. Only 11 snaps.
Wow.
That's weird.
But anyway,
Jaron Kearse took the slot job.
Really?
That's I went during I like to call it the panic show. Yesterday, I talked about the silver lining. That was him.
That over by Mark Ingram. I liked your tweet, Luke, because I was sitting there thinking, oh my God, that is just embarrassing as heck on national TV to have, and that just showed you how much that's
like they had quit
from his. He's a bull.
I take that back. It's because they were they put us in base package the whole game, so there's a lot of getty in, not a lot of need for a slot corner.
Okay. But yeah,
which is uncomfortable for the Saints.
It's
But yeah, that's the thing that bothered me. Like the pick six, miscommunication. Probably shouldn't be having those types of miscommunications in late October, right? That's probably a huge issue. But I get it, right? Pick sixes are a thing that happens to every team, and the fumble sucks, and those things, those big swingy momentum plays are going to happen to teams. But you could tell that they had quit. The fumble happened, and Treadwell made the tackle, and then got the penalty and stuff. And did anyone in their right minds think that the Saints weren't going to score a touchdown immediately?
Yeah.
There's absolutely no way that they stop that, because I don't think this team has the resiliency that they once did. And I think if anything concerns you from this loss, it's that that happened, and then the pick six happened, and after the pick six, the Saints got an 8.5-minute scoring drive.
Yeah.
And then the Vikings took 5.5 minutes to go down and score that final meaningless touchdown.
And they had no panic in what they were doing. The crowd started booing them at one point.
Yeah, they were going slowly, and if it were just a blowout, right, and you were just going, that's one thing. But they looked like they were trying to score quickly and just entirely incapable of that, because it just didn't look like they truly believed they could win this game. They really
see at the start of the game that the Vikings seemed to really want to impose their will of running the ball, that they weren't afraid of the Saints as the number one rush defense in the league. They were,
so that kind of interior is starting to, I guess, gel. So I think kind of why I said that at the beginning of the show, that I do think that somewhere in that room there's 5 good players, and they just have to figure out exactly what configuration, and just get guys healthy at this point, right? Reef comes back, kicks Rashad Hill to the bench. Tom Compton comes back in if he can resume playing the way he was. this doesn't suck.
Right. And Latavius Murray runs hard. He is completely. I always said this many times. He's a different ball player than last year, and now we have the. I don't even. I'm not that worried about Dalvin Cook coming back. I don't want him back until he's completely healthy, and it may happen this week anyway because he practiced today. But the way Murray's running, I like that style. He's going to bowl somebody over, and they got a good change back in Boone, and you got Rock Thomas who can do some things. So the running game itself is really starting to gain some momentum, some traction, and you have to be pleased about what you saw last weekend.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What do you guys make of? We have two little tidbits before we get into the Lions. I saw some talk that the DeFilippo watch might be on from Daily Norseman with the Browns making the moves they did. People are afraid that DeFilippo might end up leaving already, which would suck. But I can't even picture that happening.
Are you saying mid-season?
Yeah, they're saying next year. Sorry. Yeah, but they're gonna interview him.
Yeah,
basically.
A lot of other media places around the country are writing, places like Cleveland or like the Jets, which might be in the head coaching search at the end of the year, and so on. Likely, Arizona. They've all all right, who's the next head coach? And John DeFilippo's at the top of all of their lists. He's the hottest candidate right now.
Yeah, even Norseman, I think, put him in the top 2 or 3 for the Browns.
Mm-hmm.
We knew that going into it.
It's funny because people in Minnesota aren't even that high on him.
Yeah,
that would piss me off if he left. I would not be happy.
You know what? It's funny. Really quickly, I'll just throw out there. I saw the headline on Daily Norseman, and I thought, because of what I've heard from Vikings fans, that when they said the flip watch is on, I thought people were saying he should get fired, not that he was going to leave for another coaching job. So that's just the difference, I think, between fans and the national media a little bit.
That's fair considering Vikings Twitter.
Pretty much. I've fallen down that hole, and it's really negative, and I love it. But yeah, back to what you were saying, Joe.
I would just be unhappy. We knew that coming in. I thought outside chance we get him for 2 years, and he really establishes himself here and really solidifies himself a good contractor when he leaves. But if he left next year, that would be disappointing. I think you sign a 2-year contract, stick it out. And then there's going to be plenty of open jobs. And don't you want a different one than Cleveland?
Maybe,
Cleveland's a decent opening. He'll do what he does. We kind of knew.
They've got a lot of good personalities. Their owners kind of screwed up some of that stuff, but I don't know.
Oh yeah, he took head coaching interviews before he signed with us.
Yes,
we kind of knew he was going to be a 1-year guy. Hugh Jackson, next OC of the Minnesota Vikings.
Wanted to touch on getting into the Jets too. Just the second half of the season schedule. I mentioned a little earlier that they don't really have the Bills or the Jets game, even though how the Bills game went in the second half of the season, depending on how things go. But just wanted your guys' general thoughts on how difficult the second half of the season is going to be. Whether just like I said, I bounce a lot of my panic off of you guys, and just hearing some of the ness, but they can improve, I guess. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how I feel about this team against the rest of the schedule, and if I should be worried about the playoffs and stuff like that. Joe, since you're ready to jump down my thought.
Are you done?
I'm never done.
You didn't get enough talking in on Tuesday.
I got a taste of it, and I like it.
The schedule now, the second half is harder than it was at the beginning of the season. The Bears are obviously a much better team than we thought they were at the beginning of the season. They're going to be tough in both Chicago and the final game. And Packers, I'm not as worried about them as I had been. You got the Patriots away. Seattle Seahawks have gotten better. I don't think they're that difficult of a team, but it is on the road. And if you beat the Lions this Sunday, you'll beat them in Detroit, I think. So it's okay.
The outcome of the Rams game didn't change your perception of the Packers
No.
do you think the Rams just had coached a conservative game and that was the problem? I didn't watch it, but I read a lot about it, and that was basically what
I didn't
got
either.
from it.
I watched it online. As far as a game cast, I have no idea what was going on. But I just they're not there yet. Their defense isn't that great, and they just traded away Clinton Dix and traded away who else? Get rid of? Didn't they get rid of another player?
Yeah,
I'm Montgomery because he fumbled the game away and they pissed him away for peanuts.
It'll be a battle, but it'll be the Packers in Minnesota. So, and they're not. I'm not as afraid of them as I was at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the second the schedule came out, you kind of saw that November would define the season because it had 3 divisional games in it, and I think the Patriots game is in the back is right at the end of November, or maybe it's beginning December.
It's the 4th one. Oh, maybe you're right. You're right. Sorry.
But yeah, like 3 divisional games. Like we're gonna come out of the end of this stretch knowing if the team is worthy or not. Like if you told me that they would win all 3 of these, but they had to do it, they had to lose to the Saints and the Bills, I would take that over the alternative like every time, right? Because they're 3 divisional games, and all of these divisional teams are like highly average. The Lions are like okay at everything. The Bears, they have a nice defense, but Mitch Trubisky is having a horrible season. The Packers, Aaron Rodgers is clearly not himself, and everything else is like okay. Can you beat a bunch of average teams?
I hope
if
so.
you can, they're all in the division, so you can get a nice cushion built up and hopefully do it. I know that based on all the really intricate models of projection and all the Vegas stuff, that the Vikings are favored to win the division at 9-6-1.
Yeah.
You know what? I'll take it.
I said this on the show yesterday, and I correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember the NFC Championship game in the 80s because I was a baby. But 98, we had a bye. 2001, I thought we maybe had a bye. 2009 we did. Last year we did. I thought maybe if this team needs to get this Super Bowl chip off their shoulder, going the 2008 like Giants route and winning your way in maybe might be the way as opposed to taking a week off. I'm just asking if I was right about 2001. I guess I could have just texted you guys that. This is a weird place to ask. Anyway, yes, churning it out on Halloween.
Minds want to know, Joe.
They do. Right. My nieces are upstairs. I'm sure they want to know. Getting into the Lions, the funny tidbit from today was the reporter asking whether or not the Golden Tate trade made the team better, and basically he was told to sit up straight because he looked like a scumbag, which scares me and wants me to stay away from any other coaching thing. How do you feel about that trade in that context? I think the reason that it seemed like maybe a question with an ulterior motive is that people are basically saying, why would you make that trade? It makes the team worse. Are you giving up? There's, word that people in the locker room for the Lions are already kind of giving up or aren't happy about that. What's your take on the state of the Lions this halfway through the season?
It was an interesting trade, but the dude's got 8 touchdowns for him. He's the leading scorer, and I think leading in yards, receiving yards for the Lions as well. So I was a little surprised by it. He's always been kind of not a malcontent, but he's a pretty emotional guy, and might not always be pleasant to be around the locker room. I don't know. It just seems like
maybe he wasn't the right fit for what they're emotionally or as a team what they're trying to build.
I'm pleased. I'm happy. Because it makes it not as good a team, and I've got Marvin Jones on one of my fantasy teams.
Ooh.
Yeah, I've got the same thing.
I got Amari Cooper.
They're in such a weird spot right now. Like, honestly, if they come in and fall flat on their face in U.S. Bank Stadium, like, it could get really catastrophic. Like, the bottom could fall out on the Lions because there's, Golden Tate was a leader. Trading him away for a third, I think, is just insane. I think Golden Tate's probably one of the best 15 wide receivers in football. He owns yards after the catch. He owns the slot, and they do not have an answer on the roster to replace him. So from a pure, are they better or worse? I don't know. Maybe a third-round pick is worth it. it's pretty unlikely, in my opinion, that you're going to get a better player with that third-round pick than Golden Tate. But
didn't he start a little slow though? And then I think maybe he's come on. So I'm not sure.
I'm not sure, but he's been by far their most productive receiver, and he's been by far their most consistent receiver to target.
Yeah.
Like, targets to Golden Tate have been the best thing in the Lions playbook, and they don't have that anymore. They are going to replace him with Brandon Powell, an undrafted free agent rookie who I guess looked pretty good in the preseason and has yet to take a regular season snap on offense. He did a little bit of punt work in one game.
Yeah,
that's going to be who replaces Golden Tate.
He better be the next Adam Thielen.
That has to be some sort of statement. I mean, I know the NFL does more trades now than it has, but to trade a guy like that right now,
so strange. Yeah, I wonder if we'll learn months from now that there was some weird thing in the locker room, or he wasn't, he wanted out or whatever. Because it does not in any way look like a win for the Lions unless there's something about Golden Tate that.
Didn't he get unceremoniously sent from the Seahawks?
Seahawks, he did, and I think you're right that he started out slow, but they were like kind of in a post Megatron "what do we do" situation. But I remember that from the Seahawks, and I thought that he had some sort of Twitter beef with someone on the Vikings a couple seasons ago too. I remember participating in some mockery of him for some reason.
Emotional player, so
yeah,
he's a trash talker too.
Yeah.
He and Xavier Rhodes had a really fun rivalry, which I'm going to kind of miss as a football fan, but as a Vikings fan, I am so glad he's out of the division because he always killed us. And they just don't have weapons. They have Marvin Jones and Kenny Golladay, who's having a nice year, but beyond those two, they have zilch.
Yeah. What do you think I'll kick it to you, Luke, like keys to the game, ways for us to maybe have a get-right game in the division? Even though it seems that Zimmer's had, just to throw out there too, Zimmer's struggled against the Lions for whatever reason. It's a completely different coaching staff, obviously, but
yeah, the only team in the division he has a losing record against.
3-5 of the last. Oh, that's its record. 3-5 against these guys. It's amazing.
Yeah. So the Saints, thanks to having a good game on Sunday night, moved from 31st in coverage according to PFF grades to 30th. Leapfrogging the Detroit Lions. So they're just as bad as the Saints are supposed to be in coverage.
Ooh.
And that bears out. They I believe have had a lot of injuries there. They have Tease Tabor, who is a catastrophe playing. I believe he still has to start. They've kind of had some regression in a unit that has usually been pretty good with like Glover Quinn and Darius Slay and Quandre Diggs. Like that, they have a bunch of good players, but they just haven't been able to get them all on the field at the same time.
Amir Abdullah could have been good.
Think, yeah, there you go. Well, Kerryon Johnson is killing it, and I think tackling him will be a huge deal, and stopping him out of the backfield. Chris Collinsworth nailed it in the broadcast against the Saints. Eric Kendricks has been really bad this year in coverage, especially against running backs. Throwing to running backs against Eric Kendricks is a great way to beat the Vikings. So you have to find a way to fix that problem.
What do you?
Kendricks plays better, or you just use different zone coverages that have that. So that Eric Kendricks is against linebackers less often, or blitz him more often, or something like that.
Were there any at the start of the season with Kendricks? Were there any reports that he had like gained weight or like put on muscle or something?
No,
because I've heard from people that he looks bigger, and that's we're trying to figure out why he looks slower.
That was my impression, but it's only an impression based on no empirical.
No, I think he has been the worst victim of the communication errors that have plagued the defense. Have often been Eric Kendricks on the receiving end of, he's the one that ends up in the wrong place all the time. And I think that probably is a factor of, him being central to the defense and being involved in more communication than any other player. But I think it's also a matter of just him probably overthinking things and just, I don't know, he's having a down year. It happens. I think it'll be really, really crucial to get pressure on Matt Stafford, and I think blitzing him can work. They have a good, they have a really good pass blocking line. the lines for the lines has really come together, and I think that also has a lot to do with the success of Kerryon Johnson. But getting pressure on them is going to be really, really crucial. So you need, like, Everson Griffin.
We didn't even talk about Everson Griffin yet either.
Who had maybe the worst game of his career, which is understandable. You know, rust, and this thing is probably still affecting him quite a bit. But, you know, if he could get it together, that would be huge. If Daniil Hunter could have a big game, that would be huge. It sounds like Lindvall's going to play, and Sheldon Richardson is still, I believe he's still been really, really consistent. So I hope those guys can get pressure on Matt Stafford, otherwise blitz him. You know, there are some quarterbacks that, like, can handle blitzes really well, and are, like, Drew Brees is better against blitzes than he is when you don't blitz. He just kills you on the blitz because he can find the hole every single time. Matt Stafford, not that guy. So this is one of those games where it works, and they should do it more.
What do you think, Mr. Oberly? And then we can get into predictions.
Of what?
Just how the Vikings can beat the Lions. Let's talk. Luke talked about the defense, so we can talk about the offense a little bit.
You know, they have, like you said, the 31st worst pass defense in the league. I mean, I think you're going to see if the Vikings are going to want to keep the train running, going against their rush defense a little bit better than that. They're going to keep wanting to do that. I think they're like 7th, I believe, or is it 17th? I can't remember. But so they'll attack, you know, over through the air, but they're going to want to establish the run against these guys and really try to control the clock and all those cliches.
A lot harder against snacks.
Do you think,
snacks.
You know, Cook?
Yeah, Damon Harrison, that's his nickname. The defensive tackle they just traded for.
I love that
Probably the best
name.
run stuffer in the league.
Do you think I talked about in an article earlier this week that Dalvin Cook mentioned, that he felt 100%, but that he was wary of anything flaring up, and at the time he was unsure if he would even practice this week. So I took that as maybe they're just gonna, wait till the bye and then bring him back Fournette style.
He practiced today.
So that's good. I mean, it'd be great to have him, obviously.
Yeah, I think it will be interesting to see what they do with Thielen. I mean, I guess I had asked Luke, you think they would put Slay on him and shadow him a little bit? Then Diggs is going to go off. Diggs had 10 catches last week for 119 yards. So
he missed practice today too, didn't he?
He did.
No, he did. He's got a rib injury of some sort. So I think he'll play. He will. He will be out there because he played after it against. He got hurt against the Saints, and then he came back. So I think he'll play. They're just resting him.
A lot of times that comes down to who plays in the slot because, it's funny because a lot of people are like, oh, do you put your best cornerback on Thielen? But if your best cornerback doesn't play slot corner and they line Thielen and we line Thielen up in the slot, then you just can't do that. So
that's what I was wondering. I was wondering if Slay does play slot at all.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I can look it up.
Anyway, because Zimmer said he's seen how teams are trying to scheme against Thielen, and that's what you do when you're the best receiver in football. And
he does a little bit.
And you got the nickname of Atom Bomb.
Ooh, imagine he could be a neutron bomb if he was athletic. Huh? Hey, let's get into predictions because I feel very strange about the fact that I was right about the Saints beating the Vikings. We did the pregame show, 3 guys there. I was also the only guy to pick the Saints to beat the Vikings, so I'm not bragging. I feel awful about it.
You actually beat Oberly in the points competition for I think the first week since
leather helmets.
Yeah, since the Bills game.
Oh.
You only got 2 points on him, but
I knew it. Well, what was I down by? 20?
You were down 21. Now you're down 19.
Oh, yikes!
So, a lot of season left, and the margin is not that thick.
I had confetti to throw up, but in retrospect, it's not as exciting as I thought it was. Yeah, I have to savor these moments. Mr. Luke, predictions. Over-unders,
I mean. Do the over-unders?
Yeah. So the over-unders.
Okay, so
we'll do it after.
Last week, the over-unders were between Weatherly getting enough disruptions, which is the difference between, or the sum of his pressures and his run stops. It's basically any time he's the one responsible for screwing up the play. He needed to get 4 to win. He only got 3. So no to that over. The defense over under 2.5 sacks. I don't think they got 1. So the under. That was the under there. So Joe Johnson, you got that too. In addition to being right about the game, as well as David L. Freeman and G. Greco 97. And I will set up the raffle in just a minute here. And then Kirk Cousins throwing to 6.5 different receivers. He threw to 7. Rock Thomas got a catch.
Wow. Oberle had that one right.
I was sweating it. It was 6.5. It was 6 in the first half, and Treadwell got one in the second half that finally put
me. However, both Oberle and I picked a win, so we don't get the point. This week.
What?
I know it sucks.
My win I picked with the other thing, and now you're saying it travels to this.
You have to get both the game result and the over/under correct.
Yeah, that's why I'm.
That what you have to do for Gnome as well.
Yeah.
I don't have the raffle ready yet, so I'll go over these and let you guys talk about it, and then set that up in the meantime. So this week, the first one is Kirk Cousins over/under 2.5 touchdowns. That's the actual number 5 production. I think because of the struggles in the Detroit Lions coverage, they're projecting a pretty gaudy day for Kirk. So if he gets 3 touchdowns, that would be the over. Dan Bailey over/under 99% field goal. Thanks. And I'll actually include extra points in that too. Oof. So basically, he hits the over if he doesn't miss any kicks. And the final one is Thielen over/under 0.5 Calvin Johnson records broken.
Here's a quick question. Quick question. For Cousins, those are passing touchdowns? Like, do rushing touchdowns count?
Not necessarily. QB sneak touchdowns would count.
Oof. I think I go first. Because
No, you would go last because you won. Oberle and I are still tied,
that's right.
So Oberle, you can take it away.
You get the advantage. I get it. You're right.
Okay, well, let's see. We have... Check these out again. I've lost them. I will take my man Adam, the Adam Bomb. I'm going to go over. The Adam Bomb's going to blow up Megatron's record. So.
Ooh.
You projecting a win as well?
Oh yes.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's just do your game prediction now too. Then they'll be kind of cohesive. I get what you mean.
There you go.
You should probably do them earlier because this is predicated on that a little bit. If you want to do your game thing.
I have the Vikings winning 27-20.
It's a good one, Mr. Braun.
Okay. I was gonna take the Thielen one. I'm not betting against you on that because I think he's going to do it, and I think he's going to do it easily. I believe at home against the Lions, you got to win if you're a playoff team, and I think they're a playoff team. So I'm going to take the win. I'm going to say that Dan Bailey pulls it together.
Oof!
And he doesn't miss a kick.
Thank you.
Take the over on him.
I'm taking Cousins the over. And I'm doing that because I'm predicting the Vikings will win 41-21. I'm getting them 20 points back. That was my.
I guess you gotta get bold, huh?
Yeah, everything I do is a little bold, I guess. I'm a Cousins apologist. Clearly, I think that they're gonna air the ball out, show what they should have done last week. I think having players back will help too. So I think he'll do it. Maybe Dalvin Cook will even get a receiving touchdown. We'll see. But I'm bullish on the Vikings because I have to be. This is way less fun when they lose.
I could definitely see a QB sneak touchdown getting in there, or the Lions' defense, their run defense is not the Saints, and their pass defense is the Saints. It's been a rough time for them defensively. I mean, they had Brock Osweiler throwing all over them.
Yeah, and I don't know, but with the rush touchdown, that's what hedged it for me. I can see that happening. But did you set up I did send out the gnomes this week to the 4 previous winners, And so they probably haven't gotten them yet, but they're supposed to basically take a selfie with the gnome or just a picture of the gnome to share to our social media. So if you are the winner, if you could do that, that would be awesome because that helps us out a little bit.
Yes, thank you everybody who participated, by the way. We did get a whole bunch of submissions. Everybody did really, really well to submit. It's just that everyone picked the Vikings and only 2 people were actually correct. So we only have 2 people in the raffle this time. I mean, literally like 30 people whose names I didn't read because they were wrong. So thank you everybody who participated, and thank you for listening all the way to the back of the show to see if you won. The gnome is going to G Greco 97.
Woo!
Greco.
3 to 7 business days, baby. That's all we're budgeted for. So keep an eye out for that. That's awesome, though. We love stuff like that because it lets us know people are listening and having fun and stuff like that. Even when the team loses, I know our numbers go down. I don't blame anybody for that. But hopefully they'll turn it around. I have a pretty good feeling about it, despite my demeanor. Check out all of our content up until the game. Check out the live chat. Those have been really fun. Joe will be back this week. We had about 10 people there. And then no trolls for once, so that's an improvement. Check out Joe's stuff on the... You're right. I miss them. Check out Joe's stuff on the sports post. I forgot to mention that at the beginning of the show. Check out Joe's stuff on the Pocket Protectors podcast. We had a message on one of our sites, I forget which one, asking when the next Pocket Protectors podcast was from a couple people. And I said, go away.
Kind of now.
Ooh.
We actually did one on Monday. It's out.
Yeah, there you go. You ask a question,
special
it
guest
gets answered.
Yinde, Saxy Prince.
Oh, cool.
From
wow.
their flagship show and also of Daily Norseman fame.
That's pretty cool. Check out Morning Joe's on Friday. Check out Purple Territory Radio. We are up to almost 10 shows. So if you like Vikings content, we got it. Otherwise, this has been the Purple Journal Podcast. Happy Halloween to everybody. I hope everyone got some good snacks. I hope the Vikings beat Snack on Sunday. Talk about a great segue. But this has been the Purple Journal Podcast. Thanks for listening. Skol!